Most higher learning institutions have a newspaper run by their own students. In Virginia alone, UVA has the Cavalier Daily, JMU has the Breeze, and VCU has the Commonwealth Times. From the Harvard Crimson to small high school publications, students do important work to tell their own stories and those of the world around them. Longwood University's Rotunda is no different. Since 1920, the paper has been pumping out the news and views of the Lancers, just not always under the same name. Why another dummy with over 600 of us already here? The writers could not find a name for their new newspaper, and decided on dummy until they could think of a better one. By the end of that year, they had found it, and the Rotunda was born. In 1959, public schools in Prince Edward County closed rather than be forced to integrate, and they would not reopen until 1964. Donna Humflett of the Longwood class of 1964 was the managing editor of the Rotunda during her time at Longwood.
Donna Humflett was editor of the Rotunda in 1963, and she decided, given the civil rights movement that had been sweeping the South earlier that year, and given the school closings situation here in Prince Edward, decided to write an editorial calling for the desegregation of the movie theater downtown.
Seeing the hardship that was inflicted on the African Americans of Prince Edward County made Donna realize that radical
Donna
change
stood up
had
for
to
what
be
was
made.
right and decided to write an editorial on the subject, but she faced some roadblocks along the way.
What you call him now, but the faculty advisor for the newspaper told me that I should probably run that by the administration. And we had an acting president because the president was on a sabbatical in Pakistan, I believe. And so I went there and he said, I can't allow this, and it would be too controversial.
She knew that it was a rather radical statement for a Longwood student to say, and President Weigel advised her not to print it. And so she ended up instead printing a blank space where the editorial would be, and in the middle of that space she wrote, "This space, which usually contains the editorial, is blank for two reasons. One, the tone of the editorial which was to appear here was considered by the administration to be too antagonistic for publication. And two, the blank space is to remind us that an unsolved social problem exists and will continue to exist until we find a satisfactory solution to it. Such a solution can come about only through the combined efforts of the groups who have created it. May we be willing to put forth that effort."
I always enjoy hearing that story because I think it's so inspiring and motivational that someone our age back in the day, when something so momentous and important was happening, was willing to kind of take a stand in the only way that she really knew how, by publishing that blank space. I know for me, I have not had that experience. The university itself does give pushback on certain articles. Like I remember I was trying to work on a piece about the fact that Farmville's only hospital, Centra, still didn't have physical evidence recovery kits, and that's what's used in a lot of sexual assault cases. And so I was trying to write a piece about that, and they had to have a sit-down meeting with me off the record about how they didn't necessarily think that would be an important thing for the Rotunda to be focusing on right now, just because nothing could be done about it, so there was no point in talking about it, was basically the bottom line of what they told me. So there's always that tension that she faced back then and that we face today between like journalists and public relations people, and how we want to tell the truth and how that story is told.
If I remember correctly, the Farmville Herald wouldn't publish it, and so they actually, when they printed that Rotunda that week or that day, they published a blank space, and the New York Times came down to write about it, and that's a pretty significant moment in the Rotunda's history, and I think a credit to the independence of that student organization that remains today.
Yeah, because the president he wanted to protect the college's relationship with the town, and it was sort of a go along to get along kind of atmosphere, and the editor of the current paper at Longwood was right. Well, the thing is, you have to believe in your heart that you're right, and young people have a hard time with this. I think that there's not going to be a silver bullet, and there's not going to be easy change. The kids at Parkland, that were that survived the massacre there, they're learning that, and I'm very, very proud of them. The schools were closed for several years. I think it was maybe 5 years, and then they finally opened, and I dare say that the schools is relatively segregated even now.